I know this is not going to work for everyone. It's just a product of my own reflection of being a new parent and what I would want my relationship with my child to be like in the future. How I would want him to think of me, although I can't control it, but how I would want him to think of me as he grows up and even when he's not living with me. And it's also a product of me reverse engineering why I respect and love and get inspired by my own parents. They weren't perfect, and neither was I as a child, but the relationship we have now, I know I respect them. I know I love them. I hope they feel that. And I know I get inspired by them. And so just reverse engineering what they did and who they were and what words they said or what actions they took that got me to this point where I respect them, love them, and get inspired by them. I think if parents can get a hold of this, I'm not guaranteeing an outcome, but I know for sure that your relationship can improve dramatically. And I know that if you can just focus on the inputs, if you can just focus on what you can control, your relationship with your child can get so much better. And so the way that I reverse engineered why I respect, love, and get inspired by my parents is I thought about what did they do that made me respect them. Not because it forced me, but it earned my respect for them. And one of the things that I came up with was they were the same person, whether they were with me or they just with me or just with our family, or they were in front of the church, or they were at their workplace, or they were at their hobby, jogging, playing basketball for my dad, in a social setting outside, like, in a party, a birthday, something like that. They were the same person. They had the same characteristics. They had the same qualities about them, the same demeanor. It doesn't mean that they couldn't adapt to fit a certain context or to fit a certain emotional environment in a room, but generally speaking, they didn't change who they were just because of who they were with. And so that's one of the things that really earned my respect, because the person that we saw on the stage as pastors, as teachers in a small group or teachers in a bigger group, is the same person that we saw at home. And so that was really helpful in earning my respect. Another reason they earned my respect is that they were disciplined and they disciplined. Their words actually were followed with actions. It was that when they said something, they were actually going to do it. Were they perfect? No, but I honestly can't think of a time that they didn't follow through with what they said they would do. If my dad said lights off in 5 minutes, guess what? In 5 minutes, lights are turning off. And not only when it came to disciplining us like that, but even with their own lives, with their health, with their activity level, especially in their spiritual lives, that they were the examples in the church for praying, for reading the Bible consistently, for checking in with people and caring for people, following up with people, teaching people. They were consistent. Their actions followed what their words actually said. And probably just the cherry on top is that they both worked hard and they hardly complained. I can't think of a time, especially when I was living with them under the roof, when my parents complained about how hard they worked. Maybe they'll be tired, but really, you know what complaining's like, right? You know when somebody's really complaining. And I just don't think I recall a time when my mom or my dad, who both did full-time ministry, so that's a pastor in a church, and that's pretty much all day Sunday as far as activities and planning and preparations. And throughout the week, they're doing small groups, they're doing teachings, they're doing house visits, and they're doing dedications, they're doing baptisms, they're doing weddings, all this stuff, funerals, all that stuff full time. And they held a full-time job on the side. Well, I guess it depends what you thought was on the side, but they had full-time jobs outside of that and full-time ministry. And they hardly complain. Now we get to a point where we can actually have conversation. We have nuance in our conversation about what is difficult about their lives or what is difficult about the hard work that they do, but it never came off as complaining, and I really respected them for that. Now, if I could sum up why I love my parents in a statement, it's because they loved me first. Growing up the youngest of 3 kids, I'm sure my elder siblings will say that I had the easiest time, because they kind of were a lot more lax by the time I came into the world. They figured out parenting a lot better by the time I got into the world. But just generally speaking, I think I could speak for my siblings as well. Like, our parents loved us first before we earned it. And not that we could even earn it, but before we did something to perform to earn their love, they already loved us. And they showed that without requiring us to prove our worth to them, prove that we are worthy of their love. They already loved us regardless of that. And I think the other fundamental reason why I love my parents is because they demonstrated love for each other. That their marriage was first before even their parenthood. That their marriage was sacred and important, and they worked on it, and they showed signs of affection to us or in front of us. And they showed us how to have respectful conversations with each other, between spouses. And they showed us a healthy marriage. Like, I still don't know all the ins and outs. I'm sure that they've had struggles. I'm sure that they've had fights and arguments. But what we saw as kids, I can speak for myself, but what I saw as a kid is two parents, a husband and a wife, who truly loved each other, respected each other, communicated with each other. And even though they have different personalities and that showed in different ways, they showed us how to love. And they showed that to us first and foremost by the way that they loved each other. And then probably the biggest reason I get inspired by my parents is, now that I'm older, I'm 30 years old now, I've seen them face adversity and challenges and problems throughout their lives, and especially in ministry, which is what I'm becoming more and more part of, seeing the behind the scenes, kind of behind the curtain, so to speak, of what they have to go through in ministry. And I am inspired by the way that they persevere through those adversities. They persevere through the things that people say about them, and they're willing to, in a way, take it on the chin, humble themselves, and still find a way not to take it personally and be insulted and carry bitterness towards that other person, maybe for a season, but ultimately their actions show that they forgive, that they are willing to love even beyond what that other person might deserve, that on top of that, they're willing to humble themselves enough to actually learn from something like a critique. And so I'm inspired by the way that my parents persevere through those adversities, through those obstacles. And I admire their relentlessness when it comes to, again, teaching the word, again, praying every morning, and having these ambitions for the church and for the people of the church in itself to be more than they even think they could be, more than we could think we could be, and to aspire to be the best disciples of Jesus that we could possibly become. And so I've seen all these things from my parents' lives, and I hope to be able to do even just a fraction. And of course, I hope to do more, but if I could just get a fraction of these things instilled in my character and be consistent in my habits so that I could instill some of these things in my son, I would be content. I would be glad about that. But of course, the goal is, like I said, not for me to force my son to respect me or to love me or to get inspired by me, but to take these principles of the things that I've observed about my parents, and maybe for you, if you love, you respect, you get inspired by your parents, what are those things that your parents did for you or to you or around you, in front of you? What are those things that they did and said and displayed that led you to respect them and love them and get inspired by them? I actually do want to hear your comments because I want to learn from you. Again, I'm just another parent who's actually just trying to figure this all out along with you and trying to do their best at raising a child to be the best version of themselves as much as I can influence that, and to walk in the purpose and will of God as much as I can influence that, and to say, God, I'm going to do whatever I can to add this into to his life, but I leave the rest up to you. So I actually want to hear from you. If you love, you respect, you get inspired by your parents, let me know what it is that your parents did, or your parent, for those single parents out there, like what your parent or parents did that got you to respect, love, or get inspired by them. God bless.